The night I burned with him and woke up as his curse is a memory etched into my bones, as vivid as the flames that consumed us. The rooftop was slick with ash, the air thick with smoke that choked the stars from the sky. Below us, the city burned. Fire licked up the sides of the building, devouring glass and steel. The neon lights that once painted the streets in pink and gold flickered and died, swallowed by the blaze. I gripped Ron's hand, my fingers trembling, sticky with blood and soot. His palm was warm, too warm, as if the fire had seeped into his skin, fusing us together at that final moment. My heart pounded in my ears, matching the roar of the inferno beneath us. What have we done? I couldn't speak the words. My throat was raw from the smoke, from the screams I had swallowed since this nightmare began. The wind tore at my hair, whipping it across my face, tangling it with ash and sweat. I could barely see through the curtain of tears and soot clouding my vision. And then, his voice, calm, certain, as if this had always been the end he envisioned. "If we can't be together in this world," Ron whispered, his breath hot against my ear, "let it burn with us." His steel-gray eyes met mine, eyes I had once thought kind, full of hidden storms. Now they were empty, or perhaps too full of everything, regret, sorrow, love twisted beyond recognition. His lips, cracked and darkened with soot, curved into a sad, gentle smile. I felt my knees weaken. My body screamed for life, for escape. But my soul reached for him. He pulled me closer. I felt the heat of him, the shudder of his chest as he inhaled what might be his last breath. And before I could speak, before I could ask him why, his lips found mine in a kiss that tasted of smoke and endings. We stepped forward together. The world tilted. Flames rose up to meet us like the open jaws of a beast. My final thought wasn't of fear or pain. It was of him, the man who had set my heart alight long before the fire took us. And then, cold, an impossible, soul-deep cold that swallowed the heat, the pain, the love, darkness, and the knowledge, terrible and undeniable, that I had not found peace in the flames. I had awoken as his curse. Darkness. It pressed against me like a second skin, thick, endless, and suffocating. But there was no air to choke on, no body to feel the weight, only awareness, only the memory of fire, of his lips, of the fall. And then, light, a thin silver thread of it slicing through the black. I followed it because what else was there to do? The thread widened, becoming a path. The path became a street. I stood on an old city road, the cracked asphalt glistening as if wet with oil. The buildings I once knew, the bakery where I bought morning pastries, the corner bar where we had our first drink, stood silent, veiled in gray mist. The world felt familiar, but wrong, like a dream of home distorted by grief. I looked down at my hands. Pale, too pale. The skin was smooth as porcelain, but no warmth pulsed beneath it. My veins were dark, like ink lines drawn on marble. When I moved my fingers, they felt hollow. The ring Ron had given me, a simple band of silver, was gone. A strange wind tugged at my hair. I tried to brush it back and froze. My reflection stared at me from a shattered shop window. Long dark hair tangled with shadow, eyes glowing faintly red in the gloom. My lips were colorless. My face, mine and not mine, framed by streaks of ash like war paint. I raised a hand to my cheek. The reflection did the same. But the girl in the glass wasn't human. No, this isn't real. I stumbled back, heart pounding, though I had no heart to beat. I felt no breath in my lungs, no chill on my skin. The world was quiet, except for the soft crackle of unseen embers and the hum of something ancient, coiled deep within me. "You're awake at last." The voice came from the dark between two buildings, smooth, rich, touched with amusement. A figure stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of storm-washed earth. His eyes were the first thing I saw clearly, unnaturally bright, like molten gold, glowing beneath dark brows. He smiled, but it didn't reach those eyes. "Kane," he said, as if I'd asked. "And you? Well, you've become something quite extraordinary, haven't you?" I tried to speak. My voice was a ghost of itself, ragged and soft. What am I?" He tilted his head, studying me like a predator with a wounded creature. You're what happens when love dies in fire and hate is all that's left. A curse, Sylvia. His curse. My knees buckled, and I dropped to the cold street. Tears wouldn't come. I doubted I had any left. I didn't choose this, I whispered. None of us do. Kane crouched beside me, close enough that I could see faint lines of old scars along his jaw, a story he didn't tell. But here you are, and so is he. A sudden pull, deep, instinctive, twisted in my core. Like a string tied to my ribs, yanked toward a distant point. I gasped, clutching my chest. What? Kane laughed softly. Feel that? The bond, the unfinished business. He's alive, you know, breathing, dreaming of you, hating himself for it. I shook my head, wild with the ache of it. The pull became a compass, pointing unerringly to him. To Ron. I can't see him. I shouldn't. But you will. Kine rose towering over me, his silhouette haloed by the ghostly mist. You'll haunt him, that's what curses do. I pushed myself to my feet, fists clenched though there was no strength in them. Why are you here? Me. His grin was sharp, too wide. I like watching new curses learn what they are. And maybe, I don't mind company. The street shifted beneath me, the shadows thickening at the edges of my vision. The world was bending, reshaping to my will, or my need. I felt it then, my power. Raw, hungry, a storm inside, waiting to break free. And at its center, the image of Ron, broken, lost, haunted. I turned from Kine, from the empty street, from the reflection that wasn't mine, and I walked toward him, toward the man who made me burn. The pull led me through streets both familiar and alien, the mist swallowing the edges of buildings, the sky hanging low and heavy like a lid over a coffin. My feet made no sound as I moved, gliding more than walking, drawn ever closer to him. When I reached his house, I stopped. It stood like a relic from another time. Old stone walls, ivy clinging to the cracks like desperate fingers, windows dark and hollow. A mansion, once proud, now as empty as the heart that beat within it. The street lamps flickered, as if afraid to cast light on this place. I stood before the gate, fingers brushing the cold iron. The bond tugged at me, urging me forward. I didn't resist. The gate groaned open without my touch. Inside, the house was all shadow. The air was thick with dust, with forgotten memories. I drifted through the halls like a ghost. Because that was what I was, wasn't it? And then I found him. Ron knelt in the center of what had once been a grand sitting room. The walls were lined with broken shelves, the fireplace cold and dead. He was alone, his head bowed, hands trembling as they clutched a tarnished silver pendant. His hair was longer now, tangled, his clothes rumpled and stained. His face, gaunt, eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. His lips moved silently, but I could hear him. Please, please leave me be. I've paid enough. The weight of his voice made my chest ache, though no heart beat within it. I stepped closer. The bond burned brighter the nearer I came. My fingers itched to reach for him, to touch, to hurt, to comfort. I didn't know which. He gasped suddenly, as if feeling me near. His hands flew to his head, clutching at his hair. Not tonight. He begged the emptiness. Not again. The fury rose then, sharp and sudden. Not again? As if my presence were a torment he did not deserve? As if he were the victim? The room darkened around me, the shadows thickening, curling like smoke. I felt the power in me stir, uncoiling like a serpent awakened. A noise at the doorway pulled my gaze. A man, young, lost, just a passerby who'd wandered too close, stood blinking at the threshold. He couldn't see me, not truly, but he felt me. His skin prickled with the instinctive fear mortals have for things they don't understand. The rage surged. My fingers lifted toward him, and the air grew colder. The man's breath quickened, his eyes wide with terror. One word, one thought, and I could end him. Just like that. Stop. The voice was low, amused, but firm. Kane. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me as if this were all a game. His eyes glinted gold in the dim light. First time's always messy, he said, nodding toward the trembling stranger. Let him go, Sylvia. You're not ready for that price. I clenched my fists, fighting the storm inside. Slowly, painfully, I let the shadows recede. The cold eased. The man stumbled back, turned, and ran, his footsteps loud in the night. Kane pushed off the doorframe, strolling toward me. That felt good, didn't it? For a moment, I glared at him. "What do you want?" He smirked. "To see if you'd do it. If you'd cross the line." I didn't. No. But you wanted to. His words cut deep because they were true. Behind me, Ron had collapsed to the floor, his forehead pressed to the dust, his breath coming in ragged sobs. He rocked slightly, like a man trying to hold himself together by sheer will. My fury faded, leaving only sorrow. I remembered his hand in mine on the rooftop, the warmth of his touch before the fire claimed us. I remembered how he had whispered my name like a prayer. Now he knelt in ruin, haunted by my ghost. Why do I still care? I whispered, more to myself than to Kane. He shrugged. Because you're not just a curse. Not yet. I watched Ron until the first hints of dawn broke the night, painting the sky in muted silver and gray. And then, before the sun could touch me, I turned and melted into the mist. But the bond remained, tight and unbroken. And I knew I would be back. The old subway station lay buried beneath the city's hum, forgotten by most, remembered by few. I descended the cracked steps, my footsteps silent on the chipped tiles, the air heavy with damp and rust. It smelled of mold, of old smoke, of lost time. Once this place had been ours, a secret refuge from the world above. Saya and I had shared stolen laughter here, whispered dreams of futures we barely dared imagine. Now, it was a tomb of memories, hollowed out by betrayal. The platform stretched ahead, swallowed by darkness at both ends. Faint torchlight flickered in the distance, casting long shadows against the grime-streaked walls. And there she was, Saya, standing at the edge of the tracks, head bowed, blade resting across her shoulders. I hesitated, watching her from the veil of shadows. She'd changed. Gone was the soft warmth I remembered. In its place, a hardened figure clad in dark leathers, her hair cropped short, eyes sharp as the weapon she carried. "I know you're there," her voice echoed, calm but edged with steel. I stepped forward, letting the torchlight catch my face. She didn't flinch. "I didn't come to fight," I said softly. Her lips curved in a bitter smile. "Good. Because you'd lose." The words stung more than they should have. Saya lowered her blade, leaning it against the cracked wall. "What do you want, spirit? Come to haunt me too?" I opened my mouth, to explain, to plead, I wasn't sure. But she cut me off with a sharp gesture. "No. Don't speak. I don't want to hear lies in a voice that sounds like hers." Hers. Me. I drew in a breath I didn't need, forcing the storm inside to settle. Saya turned, eyes blazing. "Do you know what they did?" I said nothing. "The Renshin clan," she spat the name like poison, "wiped out my family, my parents, my little brother, burned our home to ash because my father refused to sell them land for their cursed rituals. And Ron, your precious Ron, watched, stood there in his fine robes while they screamed." Her fists clenched at her sides, trembling with the weight of old rage. "I swore then," she hissed, "I would end them, every last one. And now the time's come." I felt the bond pulling, twisting inside me. A voice in my head whispered to believe her. Another urged me to doubt. From the gloom, Kane's voice drifted lazily. "Such neat little stories we tell ourselves." Saya's eyes snapped toward him as he stepped from the shadows, arms folded, grin sharp. "You." Her face darkened. I should have known a half-breed mongrel would be sniffing around. Kane gave a mock bow, charmed, as always. "But I'm not the enemy tonight." He looked at me, golden eyes gleaming. "Tell me, Sylvia, did it ever occur to you that maybe Ron wasn't the villain in your story?" Saya snarled. "Don't listen to him. His kind thrive on chaos, lies." But Kane kept his gaze on me, voice low, coaxing. "Did you see him light the fire, hear him give the order, or did you just assume because it hurt less than the truth?" My mind reeled. The rooftop, the flames, Ron's broken voice. "If we can't be together, let it burn." Had that been surrender or guilt? Saya took a step closer, her fury palpable. "I don't care what he says. The Renshin clan will fall. And if you stand in my way, I'll cut you down too." The words shattered something inside me. This was Saya, my friend, my sister in all but blood. And now she stood ready to destroy everything, even me, for vengeance. "I don't want this," I said, voice barely a whisper. Saya's gaze softened for a heartbeat. "Neither did I. But it's all that's left." Kane chuckled darkly. "And so the web tightens. Spin your threads, little hunter. But remember, even spiders get caught in their own traps." Saya grabbed her blade and turned away, disappearing into the dark, leaving the taste of ash and regret behind. I stood frozen, torn between past and present, friend and foe, love and hate. And the bond to Ron pulsed, as insistent as ever. The house loomed before me again, bathed in silver light. The ivy clung tighter to its stone walls, as if trying to strangle the life from within. The windows stared back at me like dark, empty eyes. But it was the garden that stopped me. Once, this had been our place. Mine and Ron's. The roses we planted together now withered on broken stems. The fountain where we'd shared whispered promises stood dry and cracked. And the oak tree beneath which we'd stolen kisses reached gnarled branches toward the moon like a supplicant begging for mercy. I remembered the first time he kissed me here. How his hands trembled as they framed my face. How he'd tasted of rain and hope. The pull of the bond drew me forward, through the walls, into the house's cold heart. He was there. Ron knelt in the grand hall, just as I'd found him before. The moonlight streamed through a shattered window, painting him in ghostly light. His shoulders shook with silent sobs, his fingers clutching that same silver pendant as if it could ward off his demons. His voice was low, broken. "Forgive me," he whispered into the darkness. "Please, just forgive me." I stood in the doorway, unseen, my form a shadow among shadows. My rage had carried me here, but now it ebbed, leaving behind the ache I could never quiet. I watched him, the man I had loved, the man who had burned with me. And I felt that terrible pull between hate and longing. Why do I still care? A sound, a memory, filled my mind. The subway station, years ago. The first time I saw him. It was raining that night, water dripping from the grimy ceiling, pooling on the cracked tiles. I was late, breathless, clutching my coat around me. He stood at the platform's edge, head down, lost in thought. The train roared in, and I stumbled as the crowd surged forward. My hand brushed his, just a fleeting touch, but the world froze. I looked up, and his eyes met mine, steel gray, storm-tossed, as if he too had felt the universe pause. We spoke no words that night. None were needed. And now, those same eyes, hollowed by regret, dark with sleepless nights, stared at nothing. "I tried," Ron choked out. "I tried to protect you, to protect them all. But I failed." I moved closer, powerless to stop myself. The bond pulled tight, as if it too ached for him. He pressed his forehead to the cold stone floor. "I chose the clan," he said, voice thick with shame. "I chose duty, and it cost me everything." I knelt beside him, though he could not see me. My hand hovered inches from his shoulder. I ached to touch him, to offer some fragment of comfort, but I knew what I was, what I had become. His breath hitched. His fingers dug into the pendant until his knuckles turned white. "I see you in my dreams," he whispered. "I see the fire, your face, the way you looked at me, like I was your world. And I destroyed it." A tear traced down his cheek, and my heart, or what was left of it, shattered all over again. The hate flared, sharp and sudden. He let me burn. But then came the love, fierce and unyielding. He suffers still. I was chained to him, by the past, by the bond, by the tangled web of what we'd been and what we'd lost. I stayed until dawn's first light crept through the broken glass. And then I fled, leaving him to his ghosts. But I carried them with me. The ruins of the old temple rose from the earth like bones of a forgotten beast. The night wind howled through the crumbling arches, carrying the scent of ash and blood. The place felt hollow, cursed long before I arrived, fitting for what was about to unfold. I moved through the shadows, drawn by the crackle of energy, the bitter sting of ancient magic stirring to life. And there she was, Saya. She stood at the altar, arms bare, sleeves torn away, the skin of her forearms marked with fresh sigils inked in black. Her eyes shone with fevered light as she scattered salt in a wide circle, her voice low and steady as she chanted words I didn't recognize. For a moment I watched her, the friend I had once known, now a stranger cloaked in fury. Finally, I stepped forward, letting my presence fill the space between us. The air grew cold. Saya froze, then straightened, turning slowly. Her face was shadowed, but the hatred in her gaze burned brighter than any torch. "So," she said, "the ghost comes to watch." "I had to see for myself," I replied, my voice low. "What you've become." Saya barked a bitter laugh. "What I've become? Look at you. A curse bound to a man who destroyed you. At least I chose my path." I moved closer, the bond to Ron tugging uncomfortably as if warning me away. "Tell me the truth, Saya." "All of it." For a heartbeat, she hesitated. And then the mask slipped, the mask I hadn't even realized she wore. "The truth?" She spat. "Fine. You deserve that much before this ends." She paced the altar like a caged animal, fury radiating from every step. "Your precious Ron, your perfect noble keeper of oaths, was nothing but a pawn. My family's death, our home reduced to rubble. That wasn't some faceless clan's decision. I made it happen." The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. "You." The word tore from me, raw and disbelieving. "Yes, me." She shouted, eyes wild now. I lit the match. I watched it burn. And I smiled. The memories crashed into me. The fire, the screams, the heat of Ron's hand in mine as we fell. And now this. Why? My voice cracked like brittle glass. She stopped, breathing hard, fists clenched. "Because they took everything from me first. The clan, the keepers, the Renshin curse that bled my family dry for generations, all in the name of balance and duty. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted him to suffer. And you were just the cost." I swayed, the weight of her words crushing the air from me. "You let me die." Saya's expression twisted, pain flickering beneath the rage. "I didn't want it to be you. But once the fire started, there was no stopping it. You were in the way." A silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "I trusted you," I whispered. Her voice softened, but the edge remained. "I trusted you too, and you chose him over everything." "Over me." Kane's voice drifted from the dark, where I hadn't even realized he stood. "And so the truth bleeds out at last." Saya shot him a look of pure venom. "Leave, half-breed. This isn't your fight." But Kine only smirked, folding his arms. "It's always been my fight. I just play it better." I felt hollow, broken. My death hadn't been fate, or Ron's betrayal, or cursed duty. It had been her design. My friend, my sister. Saya turned back to her ritual, voice cold and final. "Go if you want, Sylvia. But I won't stop. The keepers will fall. Tonight begins the end of them." I stayed rooted to the spot, torn between the ashes of love and the embers of vengeance. And the mask of friendship lay shattered at our feet. The night pressed down heavy over the ruined temple, the trees around it standing like silent witnesses to what was about to come. The wind had stilled, as if the world itself held its breath. Above us, the moon hid behind clouds, casting the scene in a dim, uncertain glow. Saya stood at the altar, her hands raised, the black ink of her sigils gleaming wet in the torchlight. The circle was complete, salt, ash, and blood. The air crackled with dark energy, thick enough to taste. And I stood there, unmoving, the bond inside me pulling tighter with every heartbeat. I could end this. I could let her finish the ritual, let the clan burn, let Ron fall with them. The thought brought a flicker of satisfaction. Justice. Or what I had told myself was justice. But then the pull shifted, deeper, sharper. His voice echoed inside me, carried by the bond. "Please, forgive me." I closed my eyes and tears, real hot human tears, slipped down my cheeks. My fingers trembled. The storm inside me roared, demanding I choose. "Kane," I whispered, sensing him beside me though I hadn't heard him approach. He stood there watching the ritual unfold, arms folded, golden eyes unreadable. "You could stop her," he said softly. "But why would you?" I swallowed hard. "Because this isn't the way." He tilted his head, studying me like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Isn't it? Think of it, Sylvia. The clan gone, Ron gone, the bond broken. You'd be free." Free. The word felt hollow. "And you?" I asked. "Would you be free?" For the first time his grin faltered. The mask slipped, and there it was. regret. A fleeting shadow across his face, gone as quickly as it came. "No," he said quietly, "but I stopped believing in freedom a long time ago." Saya's voice rose in a chant, louder now, the language sharp and ancient. The ground beneath us trembled. The flames of the torches danced wildly, throwing monstrous shapes on the crumbling walls. The power surged, begging me to unleash it, to join with hers, to end everything. And I could, but I wouldn't. "No," I said, stepping forward. "Not like this." Saya's chant faltered. She turned, fury blazing in her eyes. "Stay out of this, Sylvia. Don't you see? They deserve to fall. He deserves to fall." I shook my head, the tears still coming, my voice shaking but sure. "Maybe they do. Maybe he does. But not this way. Not by our hands. Not with more blood." Saya's breath came fast, her blade half raised. "You'd protect him? After everything?" "I'm protecting myself," I said, and it was true. From becoming something I can't come back from. The bond to Ron pulsed, warm now, no longer a chain but a thread. A reminder. Saya stared at me, the fight leaving her in a slow exhale. Her hands dropped to her sides. The storm in the air quieted. Kane let out a soft, almost wistful laugh. "Look at that. The curse chooses mercy." And in that moment I felt it, the weight lift, the darkness ease. My power no longer a storm, but a steady flame. I had chosen. The first light of dawn broke across the horizon, bleeding gold and pink into the smoke-choked sky. The temple stones glowed with the fire that now consumed the forest beyond. Flames tearing through dry leaves and dead wood. A blaze born of rage and desperation. Saya's circle had been broken. The salt scattered, the sigils smeared by my hand. The dark energy she'd summoned howled in protest, then fled like mist before the rising sun. She knelt amid the ruin, eyes wide, hands empty. The blade she'd wielded lay forgotten at her side. And I stood at the center of it all, the bond to Ron burning like a final thread of warmth in my fading chest. I felt it, the change, the price of my choice. The curse was unraveling. The power that had filled me, that had defined me, was slipping away, piece by piece. My form blurred at the edges, as if the dawn itself were claiming me. The air around me shimmered, the cold I had carried melting into something softer, gentler. In the distance, I saw him. Ron. He stood at the edge of the clearing, breathless, his shirt torn, dirt streaking his face. His eyes, those storm-gray eyes, locked on me. For a heartbeat, the world held still. And then he whispered, voice raw, broken, "Lyra," the name from his dreams, the name he'd called out in his sleep, in his guilt. Not mine, not truly, but close enough to break my heart all over again. I wanted to call to him, to tell him it was me, that I had chosen this, chosen to let go. But my voice was gone, lost to the wind and the light. Instead, I smiled, and in that smile was everything. Love, sorrow, forgiveness. Ron took a step forward as if he could reach me, as if he could pull me back from the edge of nothing. But it was too late. The curse dissolved like smoke in the dawn. The bond softened, then faded. The storm was over. Kane stood watching from the shadows, his expression unreadable. But as I vanished, I saw him bow his head, the smallest gesture, but it felt like the world. Saya remained kneeling, tears streaming down her face, the fight gone from her at last, and the sun rose higher, its light washing over the broken temple, over the forest's scorched edge, over Ron's outstretched hand. I was free. A year had passed, and the city breathed again. The scars of fire and loss remained, etched into stone and memory. But life had returned. Trees lined the streets, their leaves whispering in the breeze. Laughter echoed from cafes and market stalls. The air smelled of flowers instead of smoke. Ron walked the paths of the park at the city's heart, the same park that once bordered the ruins of his family's domain. The sun warmed his back, the light soft and golden, painting the world in hope. He had rebuilt what he could, the clan's halls reopened as schools, their weapons reforged into tools for healing. Where once there had been walls and secrets, now there were gardens, open to all. But peace was fragile, and inside him, the storm never fully stilled. Every day he felt the absence, hers. Every night he dreamed of her face, blurred at the edges, her smile like a promise he could never quite keep. He heard her voice in the wind, in the hush of rain. And then, on this morning of quiet grace, he saw her, or thought he did. Across the park among the crowd, a young woman paused beneath a cherry tree in bloom. The petals fell around her like soft snow. She turned, and for a moment their eyes met. Something in them, in the tilt of her head, in the light that sparked in their depths, struck him to his core. It wasn't her. It couldn't be. But the fire in that gaze, the fierce, unbroken spirit, was the same. Ron froze, breath caught in his throat. The woman smiled, small, knowing, and was gone, lost in the flow of the crowd. He stood there long after she'd disappeared, the sun rising higher, the world moving on around him. And for the first time in a year, he let himself believe. In second chances. In forgiveness. In new beginnings. The dawn was his now. And perhaps, somewhere, hers too.